Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back after 3 weeks grueling wait to the PokerStrategy.com community show. Obviously, some of us have heard us already, and you get to have an insight into the backgrounds of how these shows are made. But now we're starting officially. So, first of all, you can see the structure here. Well, what will we talk about today? Our guest is Tim64 Reisner. He has one of the longest running blogs over here at Poker Strategy. He actually started it in 2009, and you can see him as a guy who was freaking out over a $5 losses, and I'm never going to make it in poker, who actually turned into a really successful coach and a professional who feeds his family with poker and who charges like a decent money for coaching and provides good value. So this is going to be our guest. He also switched from a serious career, as you might say, into poker. So this is going to be one of the topics. We're going to go over Tim's background in a while. Then we'll focus on something that's very, very topical, which is the topic of spin and goes. Are they profitable? Are they stealing people from as solid cash game grinders? Should you even go into them, or should you just forget about them because of the rake and the variants? And if you do decide to go into them, what are the things that you should do? That's what we'll talk about. Then obviously we'll have a look at Tim's blog, and we'll try to get some tips into how to keep motivated to keep that blog up, and how does the blog motivate you. And finally we're going to look at poker as a career choice. Why should you quit your job and go into poker? Why not just have that cushy paycheck every week? We'll have a look at some budget and expenses, how to make sure you save enough money to feed your family, save money for the future, etc. And we'll have a brief look at the Heads Up Championship, which is running at the moment, and everyone's excited about that. And finally, I'll have a look at my own bankroll challenge and ask Tim for some questions, how to become as good as he is from where I am right now. And as a final topic, we'll have a look at Twitch. And for example, Daniel Negruan, who came into Twitch, and we'll just have a look at that topic and see, should we all start twitching, or is it something only for people that actually find enjoyment that is for. So anyway, without further ado, I would like to welcome you, Tim, as our guest.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Vaclav, for inviting me on the show. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get started, Tim, before I actually show your face to people, why don't you tell us something about yourself? Where are you from, and what were you doing before you started doing the glorious game of poker?
Well, I'm from London originally, born and bred. I lived there for the first, I guess, 25 years of my life. And then more recently we moved to Cheltenham. And you've got some pictures of Cheltenham up on your screen. And on the right-hand side, you can see me and my wife sitting on a bench there. So that's that's what I look like. That's what you're going to see in a moment. Yeah, that would be too much of a coincidence if it was really me.
I believed you there. Oh my God, I feel so fooled right now.
That's yeah. That's what I look like after losing 20 buy-ins. Just turned to stone. Yeah. So previous career was as a lawyer, and I did that for about 7 years in total, including training, and it was, very well paid and so on, but there are downsides to that kind of career in terms of stress levels and inflexibility of your work style, and not knowing if someone's going to ask you to come in in your weekend and work. So we kind of gradually moved away from that and started to plan a different kind of life. And after many chops and changes, I wound up playing poker.
All right, I see. So how did you get into poker? Your blog is, by the way, is called Liar's Dice. What does that mean? And
Liar Dice. Well, it's a game. You have a small bag, like a material bag, cloth, and you have these dice which have different cards, images on them. So like kings, jacks, aces, and you shake the dice, and then you roll them out onto a table. You have to kind of put your hand in front of the dice so no one can see, and then you make a statement about like what the dice is, so you can maybe say like 2 jacks or something. Then it's the next person's turn, and whether they they do the same thing, roll the dice out, but whatever they actually roll, they have to state a hand that's bigger than your hand. So it goes like 2 jacks, and the next person says 2 kings, and then the next person says 3 of a kind, and then a straight, and so on. And at some point, you just call their bluff. You just say, okay, I think you're lying, and then they have to reveal. And if they weren't lying, you lose, and if they were lying, you win. And so it's kind of like a primitive form of poker that I used to play with my dad when I was a kid.
Okay, is that what got you into law? And a question I have: do you have to lie when you're a lawyer? By the way, what kind of a lawyer have you been? By the way, because I have no idea.
That's a tough one. Okay, you don't lie as a lawyer, but you try to present the facts in a way that supports your point of view or your case. I wasn't like a trial lawyer, they call it in America. I was a contract lawyer, so it was drafting contracts rather than standing in court, and I wasn't ever having to try and get murderers off death row or anything like that. So that was good. That would have been even more stressful, I think. So yeah, just drafting contracts, and I was working on infrastructure contracts mostly, so roads and railways and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. So how did you get into that in the first place, by the way, into law?
To law? Well, I did philosophy at university. So
that's
it's
not very
not an obvious career choice.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. You don't do philosophy with the plan of being a philosopher.
Yeah, that's right. It's not.
Yeah. So
you
always try and do something else. But my family was made up of like lawyers and doctors, so I guess I was going to end up going one way or the other. And just jumped one side of the fence rather than the other.
Oh, I see. Fantastic. Yeah, so by the way, you mentioned Cheltenham. Obviously, we can see you sitting here on the bench. Why would you move from London to there in the first place? Because and what can you tell? What's fun about the town, and why did you decide to go there? And was it before you started playing poker professionally, or was it afterwards?
Yeah, it was before. So what happened was we got engaged, and we decided to give up our jobs in London because, like I said, it was kind of a stressful lifestyle. And we went traveling around the world for a year. And then when we came back, we had already planned, okay, we don't want to live in London. It's too busy, it's too crowded, it's too expensive. And then it was just a case of trying to find somewhere that had like enough things that were a bit like London, but enough differences. So we were in a really tiny village right in the middle of the country for 6 months, but it just was just too far out, too different. So we ended up in Cheltenham as a kind of compromise. Like you can see from the pictures, it's got some really nice architecture. It's decent size, has nice restaurants and stuff. It's not too far from London, so you can drive there. It's 100 miles. But you can see from the pictures, it's also kind of green. We're surrounded by the Cotswolds hills, so it's you're 10 minutes away from rolling countryside. So it's a nice compromise. And to be realistic as well, if you give up a career in law and move to a different town, you just don't have the money. So it was kind of like we could afford to live comfortably in London, but with the kind of earnings that I make now, we just wouldn't be able to really afford it. So it's kind of like it was kind of a decision that we were happy to make, but also a practical one.
Oh, I see. Fantastic. Yeah, so one number of things I want to know before we get into all those topics. You mentioned that when you were younger, you were actually biking through Europe. Is that right?
Yeah, I worked in Prague for 6 months with the law firm that I was at, and so your home country, and I had a 6 month secondment in Prague, and I decided I had a motorcycle because.
Hold on, before you tell us that, it's very easy to prove that if you were actually in Prague.
This is Prague. This is Prague Castle.
Oh, damn it, you're good. You're actually good. You actually know what we're talking about.
Well, I could have just done my research. Yeah, I could have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But this is Prague Castle, and I think the building in the foreground is the building on the other side of the bridge. This is the Charles Bridge.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So you know what you're talking about, obviously.
Yeah. On the Vltava. So I had it was a nice 6 months. It wasn't too hard work, so I had plenty of time, and I had bought a motorcycle because I had enough money to do those kinds of crazy things at that time, and I flew out to begin with, and then when I was there for like a month or so, I decided it would be nice to have transport. So I went back to the UK and I picked up my bike and just rode across France and Germany into the Czech Republic, and I had it with me for the whole time I was there. Did a few like holidays, and I did a trip to Karlovy Vary and another trip to Austria. So it was good. When when you're young, you do these kind of crazy things, and when you look back on it, 15 years later, you just kind of go, "Whoa, that couldn't have been me, right?" Like I'm not the kind of guy that would do that sort
Was
of
this
silly
before
thing.
you were married, right?
Yeah, a long time before I was married, before I met my wife. Yeah, I was young, free, and single.
Yeah, we actually, you said you don't have any pictures of you, but we actually managed to dig up one of yourself on a bike.
This is it. This is it.
This is
this.
your bike, yeah, the yellow. Okay, so it's not like a
Yeah.
Harley Davidson. It's a
No, no,
proper
no.
sports bike, right?
I haven't even got this bike. It's very sad to admit, but I had to sell this bike as well when we moved house in Cheltenham. I had this. This was the second bike I had, and to be honest with you, I shouldn't say this, but it was really quite scary riding this thing. It was just a very powerful thing, but yeah, it was fun.
Okay, so yeah, I guess you don't have to come back to it when your midlife crisis comes. Yeah, you already did this
Exactly. I
stuff.
got it out of the way, right? Now I can just retire gracefully with the pipe and the slippers, and it's just sit in my armchair with my reading glasses on, reading about exciting things that other people do. I just, I don't have to do any of them anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, when it comes to law, how does law translate to poker? Did it help you in any way in poker, or was it simply just a complete transition, into a different career that you had to learn all over?
I mean, I don't think there's any obvious connections, but on the other hand, in law you have to think very clearly, and you have to think about how to express yourself. So you have to translate the wishes and the requests of your client
Hmm.
into plain English that works and holds up under scrutiny. So that kind of clarity of thought is helpful in poker, I think, because poker is a game of, it's obviously a game of psychology, it's a game of maths, but it's also a game of logic. Hand reading is pretty much logic. Okay, what hands does he represent? What hands do I have
Hmm.
in my range? And so thinking through things clearly is kind of key to being successful at poker. So there is some kind of transition, I guess. Some skills that are applicable to both, you could say.
Oh, is it like basically you have a case and you try to apply the different theory into it? Is that right? That's where you use your logical thinking in law. That's my
Yeah.
basic understanding of it, from shows like Ally McBeal and stuff like that. Is that
Well,
right?
I think, yeah, I wondered whether you were just trying to put me off my stride by showing me pictures of women with their, with sort of bare legs and stuff. But yeah, and in fact, you've succeeded. So yeah, I think it's a career which is well, really hard work, but it is rewarding,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of satisfaction when the client asks you to draft something and you have to sit at your desk scratching your head and trying to work out how to put it in English, and you draft it and then they say, yeah, I'm happy with that, I think that says what I'm trying to get it to say. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I have my great aunt that she's like a lawyer, and I don't know, they have like they are there's some problems with inheritance of land or something, and my dad was trying to use common sense on law,
Yep.
like use plain words and use common logic. And my great aunt, 90-year-old, she was absolutely outraged. She was like, "What is he actually thinking? Why is he stupid? Why is he using normal logic?" When it's in court, you don't do that. You use the lawyer logic, basically,
Right,
which is completely
right.
different. I don't know if it's like in the UK, but in Czech, it seems that it's like a framework of law as opposed to framework of common sense.
Yeah, I think the layperson does think that lawyers talk in a different language,
Huh?
and it's kind of hard to um, overcome that barrier when you draft something and it's in what we call legalese, which is a very formal way of saying things. The aim of it is to make sure that someone can't later come along and say, you didn't mean that, you meant this, so
Okay.
you don't have to do what the contract says. So you draft it in a way that there are like no holes in it, you can't argue with it, but that isn't the way that we speak. So you have to try and talk people through, what does this clause say, what does this one say, try and explain it to them in natural language, if you like.
Oh, I see. So it's basically exact phrases that you use, so they can be interpreted differently, and obviously it's
Exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, I get that. Yeah, because when she was talking about it, it seems like when I talk to my regular friends in poker lingo, they have no idea what's going on. If you tell someone, his range is capped, so I overbet here with the bottom of my range with blockers.
Exactly.
Say that to your girlfriend, guys, and see what happens. Yeah, I think she'll stare at you, thinking that you're absolutely crazy. So that's how I see law.
Yeah, I think it's a very good parallel, actually, because your average person they kind of glaze over when you start talking about poker, and you can just see that they're thinking about, the fact that they need to hoover or something, because they cannot relate to what you're talking about, because every statement requires so much knowledge about the game. And I think to some extent, maybe to a bit lesser degree, but to some extent that's true of law as well. You can't really necessarily always understand what a lawyer is, and I think that's why lawyers have like this reputation of being, shady or underhand, is because they have to do something in this very formal way using long sentences and stuff. People don't quite understand, so therefore they think, okay, you must be trying to trick me, which by and large is not the case, unless you're Saul Goodman.
Goodman? No, I've never seen that. What's Goodman? What do you mean? I'm confused now.
You see in the middle of the
Oh.
pictures, Better Call Saul Goodman. This is from Breaking Bad. He's like
okay.
the perfect example of the lawyer who you shouldn't trust.
Yeah, that's what we see. When we see a lawyer in the movies, we see someone deceitful who's trying to cover up the truth, win the case by lawful means, but trying to find loopholes and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like that in reality. Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, if your client tells you that they want to get out of the contract, you have to try and find something in the contract that will let them do that. So you're always looking to find mistakes in the writing, the drafting of the lawyer on the other side. And if you're the one doing the drafting, you're always trying to make sure that no one can find any kind of mistakes or lack of clarity.
Okay, so you're basically trying to play GTO so you can't be exploited.
Yeah, exactly.
No one can exploit you one way or the other.
Yeah, so basically that is the parallel.
Oh, fantastic. We'll actually come back to this when we'll talk about your choice from moving from a law career into poker, but I would like to jump to the next topic, which is obviously the hot one. I know you play sit and goes as well, but I'd like to talk about spin and goes. I actually had a shot at the $5 spin and goes. I'll tell you guys from a fish's perspective, right? I saw like $5 spin and goes. The maximum we can win is 1 million. So logically, I had to start playing those, right? So yeah. So while you watch the video, I will, from my short experience and from what I talk to people, I would like to talk about spin and goes. Yeah. So first of all, how did you get into them personally?
Well, when the format first appeared on Full Tilt Poker, I guess like everyone else, I found it kind of interesting, a little bit exciting, so I tried a few, and they seemed pretty beatable. And then what happened was that they started to draw quite a lot of traffic away from other kinds of sit and goes. And so you find yourself whenever that happens, you find yourself in a situation of, okay, either I can stay in the games I'm playing and they get harder and harder because, recreational players are moving to another format, or I can, try and expand the type of games that I play, add, another arrow to your bow. And so that's what made me think, okay, I should at least try this format and see whether it can be beaten. So, I did a little bit of research, and the big difference from playing normal sit and goes is there's no ICM, no independent chip model. So every chip is, has its own value, doesn't change throughout the tournament. So that's something that you have to kind of get your head around.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, you will have heard of the bubble in a tournament, and so if you're playing in a 9-man tournament, you have a bubble which occurs when there are 4 players left, and the last 3 guys get in the money, and the 4th player, he busts out and he gets nothing. So there's a 4-person bubble, and if you're on the bubble, you have to play in a very kind of cautious manner, and it's all about avoiding risk if you're one of the medium stacks, and if you're the big stack, you try and punish everyone and abuse the bubble. And if there's a winner-take-all scenario, which is a spin and go, any kind of winner-take-all, there's no bubble. You get nothing for second, you get nothing for third. You only get paid if you come first. And since you only get paid if you come first, you have to accumulate all the chips. There's no point coming second and trying to hang on, as long as you can in the tournament. You just have to play each hand in the way that maximizes the number of chips you win. And that's very different from sit and goes. A lot of times in a sit and go, you have a hand which you might want to call against the button steal or something, and you can't make that call because you have to be very careful. Well, in a spin and go, it's not the same. I mean, if you believe that the call is going to be profitable in terms of chips, then you make it.
Oh, I see. That's the point, actually, guys. There's an article on Poker Strategy which says that it's more suited for cash game players, actually, because there's no difference between chip EV and dollar EV. Is that what you mean, basically? There's
exactly.
No bubble? Oh,
exactly.
okay.
So, yeah. And well, the other thing is, it's perfect for heads up sit and go players because they're used to not having a bubble. They're used to having the game plan of just acquiring all the chips. So that's why there are a lot of strong heads up sit and go players playing these games, which is one of the reasons that at the higher stakes they are still pretty tough. But yeah, they know exactly what to do in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about for a while about the rake comparative to other formats of sit and goes? Because
I think it's on the high side. Yeah, I think it's on the high side. Yeah, I probably would have called it off there. Top right, by the way. But then I'm a cooling station. Yeah, it's on the high side, but I think the reality is that the poker sites understand that this is a really profitable situation, and recreational players love the format and they're willing to pay the rake. So it's just business. It's just sound business, isn't it? You have to pay whatever you're being asked to. Sorry, if you're a business, you charge whatever you can get away with.
It's called price elasticity in economics. Basically, the more there is demand for your product, the higher price is. The shorter the supply is, the higher you can put the prices up. Basically, So
exactly,
and vice versa. The less people are interested in your product, and the lower scarcity there is, the more available it is.
Exactly.
Exactly. So is that why basically it's 7% at the $1 level, 6% for free, and 5% for the remainder. I guess because it's so fast, it will be comparatively a lot higher than other formats. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think at the old Hyper Turbos, 6 Max and stuff, the rate was less than it is in the Spin and Go. So you are paying, let's say, a premium for the fact that it's a format that is very attractive to recreational players. I think the rake is not so high that it can't be beaten. And it's very, let's say, traditional in poker that the lower limits are raked higher than the higher limits. So, I mean, that's no big surprise from that point of view, if you like. So
absolutely. So question I have, because of the rake, and the thing is, one thing that the players, at first, like, people were assuming that these things can't be beat. Is that right? Like, there was the rumors that, oh my God, we can't be spin and goes because the rake is so high and the variance makes it unsustainable in the long run. But then suddenly these graphs started popping up of these players doing challenges. I can show you some of them, guys. Actually, it was. There was a guy doing a challenge, actually, a big hustler, and that guy, he made 11K from about 110,000 hands or something, games. So basically, that's what started happening, And there's this other people started popping up that basically they show these graphs and
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
absolutely crush them. So is that the reason? The reason why is because comparatively the player pool is a lot weaker than in other games. Is that right?
I think that's part of it. I think it's a format that's very attractive to players who are quite new to poker because it has a sort of gambling element to it, if you like. So it's very attractive to people who want to get rich quick. So the average skill level, definitely on the lower limits, is pretty low. So if you can ride out that variance, you definitely can make good money. I think the initial, let's say, hesitation on the part of the regs was really, to do with, well, I have my games that I play and I get up each day and I grind my 6 max or my 9 mans and, I make my 3-4% ROI and everything is, easy and I know what I'm doing. And then when you say to them, okay, we're going to introduce a new format, and there might be more variance, but a lot of people are going to move to that format. They don't like the idea, so they say, okay, this must be bad. No one can beat this. It's bad for poker. It's gambling, etc., because they just don't want to be changing what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like back in the day that when I mean, probably people that are listening to this podcast, they won't remember. It's a few years back when Zoom came out, Zoom games, When those came out, like everyone was, oh my god, this is killing poker because you don't have any reads, and you don't see the players, and the exploitation won't be possible. Some people still feel that way. That is the case. Obviously, it changed the structure of the poker world, but most people are actually playing Zoom than ring tables at PokerStars, I think even. So yeah, is it similar with Spin and Ghost, right?
Yeah. Sorry, you were breaking up just a little bit for me there, but I totally agree. I think people just don't like change generally, especially where it comes to their, when it's to do with their income. They just, they don't want to have to learn something new. But it's exactly the same as Zoom. I mean, everyone's said, okay, this is killing poker. There are no reads. Poker's all about trying to exploit your opponents, and now suddenly you have to play every opponent as if they're, brand new. And Zoom has been around for long enough to just disprove that. So I think there's always hesitation, and I'm sure there are some variants of poker that are just bad, or just bad for the game. But I think most of it is just, okay, I don't want to have to do the work involved in learning a new skill. I was thinking about this earlier, and like to give another example, like if there was, imagine some movie came out with, I don't know, Tom Cruise and some big stars, and in the movie the hero was playing like deuce to 7 triple draw. Yeah, well, if everyone who's playing poker for fun, recreational players, suddenly went, okay, this looks like a great game, I'm going to play all this deuce to 7 triple draw, assuming that's even a game and I hadn't just made it up, then what would the regs say? Would they say, oh, this is not fair, PokerStars should stop offering this game because I don't know how to play this, I don't know how to get the recreational guys money anymore? No, it's these people who are playing poker as a hobby. They are basically paying for our livelihood, so we don't get to tell them what they should and shouldn't enjoy playing. We just get to be, all right, well, you want to play this game, okay, it's up to me, I have to learn how to beat this game now. So that's kind of how I feel about it, and there will be another format, I'm sure, down the road, which will be different again from Spin and Ghost, and we'll all have to go back to the study and learn that one. But poker is always changing, and I think if you try and make it stand still, you're going to get left behind, and people will just go off and play what they want to play anyway.
Yeah, it's evolution. You have to adapt to the times. By the way, question I have, obviously you see it all the time. You play cash games, guys. If you play cash games, you know this. You play a cash game, you play a recreational player. He stacks you, he doubles up, or he even loses. And usual thing was the bum hunting thing where he moves up and you try to chase him, and you try to still play him at a higher stake. Which, by the way, some regulars did a reverse bum hunt. They were pretending that they're really bad in heads up. Then the other guy was asking them to play higher and higher, like hunting them, and then
Yes, yeah.
they
And then
moved up like half of their bankroll. They moved up there, and then it turns out it's like a 510 reg or something. And they played NL 400, and they took half of their bankroll, because they just believe they're so much better. Yeah. Anyway,
that's
but the
pretty
point.
devious.
Yeah, but the point is, do you think that spin and goes are bringing new people to poker that wouldn't play otherwise, or
Yeah,
are they just taking away recreational players from other games?
Well, I think I'm sure it's a combination of things. I mean, there's no doubt that traffic has fallen on, other types of sit and goes. So clearly some traffic is being drawn there. But I'm pretty sure that some players who didn't play poker, or maybe they played poker and lost their money quickly because, the regs are very good at taking recreational players' money. Maybe they thought, okay, look, I'll maybe have another try. I'll put another $50 online and see how I get on because this new spin and go thing, this seems kind of fun. So I think it's probably going to bring some people back who went away, and some people it will, draw to the game, and I guess that's a good thing. If they stay around long enough, then that's good for all of us. So yeah, I think it's a decent.
Right, guys, we'll be back in a second. Just small technical difficulties. Yeah, anyway, as Tim was saying, obviously it's a combination of things, I guess, because you see guys that are recreationals. They tend to jump games from one game to another. They really like going, for example, from a spin and go, and then they play a spin and go, and then I see them on the cash tables, for example, or they jump into multi-table tournament, etc., etc. So I think it goes probably both ways. You probably guys have seen the stories of the people winning Sunday Million, etc. And then they take all those winnings and they jump into heads-up sit and goes at the higher stakes, or they just start playing higher stakes cash games. So obviously, when you have the jackpot structure of the spin and goes, I'm guessing that similar things are happening. Basically, if someone wins, you can see in the $5 even, you can win like 2K in one go, basically. And if you win that, maybe you will keep playing spin and goes, but it's quite as likely that you will jump into a cash game, and play in your regular games. So if you wait a second, guys, we'll reconnect with Tim. Hello, Tim.
Again.
We are back.
Hello again. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you yet.
Oh, you can't see me yet. Right, that's fine. You can't see the screen. I think it was overloading the stream. So let's just go with the voice for you. If you can open the stream manually, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do that.
Yeah, we could just keep doing. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, it goes both ways. Obviously, when a guy wins a jackpot in a sit and go, they win the 2K. It's quite likely that they will not want to play 2K spin and go. They even can't. So it's quite likely they will try out other formats if they're a recreational player, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm just moving this across here, sorry, just so I can see their screen as well. Okay, super. Yeah, I agree. They're not going to be playing like 2K sit and goes, but let's say if they did win 2000, I'm sure that they will want to, keep playing poker, maybe play something else. So again, that money that they made will definitely kind of get spread around, and it will find its way down, work its way through the poker economy, and people will benefit, I think. So.
Yeah, so it brings to obviously it's the best thing if you can actually adapt and play spin and goes. Right. So let's say you're either as was mentioned in the coaching in the strategy article, it's actually suitable for cash game players because of the lack of chip EV, or you're a cash game player, or you play sit and goes and you decided to decline in your games, and you decide to actually jump into the spin and go world. One of the things that I noticed, even playing myself, is the mental game aspect will be a lot higher in spin and goes than in other games because of the variance. It's quite a fast format, but not that fast. But the variance in especially, what kind of players you get, it's extreme. Like you can get 2 recs on one table and 2 recreationalists that, you would play all day, all night. But also, the thing that it starts spinning at start, and some of the tournaments, they're basically you playing for $1,000 on a 5-1 and then you play for 10, So what are the tips in terms of mental game that you would suggest, mental game adjustments that you would suggest for spin and goes and for people trying to get into them?
Well, I think I agree with what you're saying. It's a format that is going to sort of bring lots of highs and lots of lows. You're going to be suddenly finding yourself playing for an amount of money, which is a really big deal for you. Whatever, it doesn't matter whether you play $1 or $60. You're always playing, in relation to your current bankroll. And if you're suddenly playing for like 100 buy-ins, that's like a really big deal. So it's kind of hard to keep your sort of or to keep calm in a way. So I think the more that you play, if you try and play each one as if it was 100 buy-ins, that's probably your best bet. So to really just focus on playing good poker rather than thinking, oh god, this is a lot of money, I'm gonna be really tight and go into my shell or something and not play a single hand, wasting aces. That's gonna not work. So you have to find a balance between kind of going crazy and just trying to play solid poker.
Oh my god, that's such a great point. That it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $10,000. You should focus on every single hand and try to play your best anyway, right?
Exactly.
So it shouldn't matter that. Yeah, I get that. So basically, you should try to play the same at all times. Forget if it's 1K or if it's the lowest spin, pretty much, and try your best.
I think it's hard to do, and I mean I've had a couple of 100 buy-in spin and goes pop up, and my heart was beating. I can tell you that, and it's pretty hard to just pretend like it's $60 when it's a lot more than that. But the good thing is, if you play a lot of poker, a lot of the decisions you make are kind of automated. You're used to doing a certain thing in a certain situation. So like if you get King 10 on the button, you raise that hand. You don't need to think, okay, what do I do now? I'm paying for a lot of money. Just go, okay, I have a raising hand, I raise it. And so that like habit of doing a certain thing with a certain hand helps you overcome the kind of anxiety, if you like, because it's like if you're driving a car, you just drive. A lot of the decisions you make when you're driving, they're just automatic. You don't have to think, okay, I should be in 3rd gear, right, let me do that, and okay, there's a traffic light, I need to stop. It's just all automatic. So that's a good thing that you can rely on your instinct, your poker instinct kind of jumping in.
Yeah, basically. Well, the question I have, obviously, what we're talking about, for example, if you guys play full ring or multi-table tournaments, cash games, whatever, and you get dealt 7 deuce offsuit, you auto-folded because you were learned that it's basically the automatic part of the brain, and the rational part it can't really focus for long, and it's analytical, but it's not emotional, but it basically drains itself very fast. So all the instant decisions, they're made basically exactly by what you're saying. But I have a question, by the way. We had the Katie Dozier here last time, who was talking about the ICM, and in sit and goes, when it goes down to really shallow stakes, right, you basically go by the ICM, and unless you find some blatant exploits, you can't really change your strategy. How is it in spin and goes? Because that's why I assumed, when I saw the variance, the fast structure, there's not really that much place for skill. So first question I have is, what's the percentage of time that you're actually really technical, that you use your set ranges, and how much space is there actually for exploiting in spin and goes at the, let's say, mid to high levels?
I think there's a lot of room. You would think that all regs play the same, but they don't. They have very, very different styles. You have players that, let's say if you get heads up against the reg, you'll have some players that are raising 60, 70% of their buttons.
Yeah.
You have other players that limp a lot with a balanced range, and they have a decent enough range that they can call people, when you raise their limp, you have, and then they'll limp a lot of traps. You've got other people who play much tighter ranges. Then you've got some people that defend a ton. If you, you raise maybe 50% and they're calling 60, 70% out of position, and you've got other players who just fold a lot of hands, wait for more decent hands. And it's not like you can say, well, this is the wrong strategy and this is the right one.
Yeah.
You basically constantly adjusting. And the same is true for recreational players. You have recreational players that actually sit there and they're very tight and they wait for big hands. And then you have players that just want to play anything that looks pretty. So I think in general, the more you can adjust in poker to the different set of opponents that you're playing, the better. And actually with spin and goes, you can be playing a whole bunch of players that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Therefore, I think it actually, it's probably good for players who are good at adjusting. Whereas you might, if you play your 9-mans, you're going to grind 10 tables of 9-man sit and goes, you probably know like 7 of the guys on that table already, and you maybe have like 3k hands on them plus, so you just know all the tendencies, and so you're adjusting to them, but actually, you're not having to do so much thinking in a way. Again, it's all sort of automated.
Yeah, it's the automated part of the brain that you basically you use it by repetition and work off the tables, right?
Yeah. So I think the fact that there's no ICM doesn't really change how much skill is involved, because ICM doesn't do anything other than change the ranges anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, in a spin and go, maybe you could shove king 10 in a particular situation, whereas maybe on the bubble of a 9-man, you can only shove ace king. So it doesn't change the fundamentals. It just changes the numbers, changes the ranges.
Yeah.
And you can, like I said, you can play way more pots, and therefore, because you're playing way more pots, you get to, if you have a skill edge, you get to use that skill edge on many occasions. When you're playing three-handed, the blinds are coming through you all the time, so you can't afford to sit there and just be really tight, so you have to get involved, and that means you're doing lots more hand reading. So I think it is a format that rewards players who are good at playing post-flop and who kind of understand the game and are good at hand reading.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I tried to play the $5 one, so obviously there's not going to be many regs. Right? In an hour and about 20 minutes that I played it, you guys can see in the video, the difference between players, it's absolutely stunning. Like, even the regulars, they use different sizes. Some of them limp, some of them free bet, some of them only free bet shove. Some of the recreationals, they allow you to actually limp. So in one match, I was limping all my buttons pretty much because he was never folding. So yeah, how much would you say at this point? It's a very, very young game as compared to, for example, hyper turbos, etc. How much is the optimal strategy figured out for these?
I don't think it's anywhere near figured out. And I think it's actually hard to have an optimal strategy because your optimal strategy is only optimal against a particular opponent type. So if if for hyper turbo heads up, sure, the regs are playing pretty optimal, but I think for spin and goes, it's going to take a while. I'm sure that there is something approaching an optimal strategy, but I don't think we know exactly what it is, and that's going to take a while for that to develop for sure. I think when as always in poker, you're always moving towards something. You're trying to get to the end point, which is playing a game that is unexploitable by and large, but allows you to exploit the mistakes that you see in other players.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it takes time to get there.
Yeah, so it's a long time, you would say. You mentioned that even limping is a good strategy there, etc. So I guess it will be a long time before people actually figure out what are the good. Obviously, the thing is, like, if, for example, in No Limit Hold and Heads Up, you see the guys that play nosebleeds, they play the high stakes, and 25-50. And what the guys playing the lower limits, what they do, they just simply watch they play. They see what their ranges are. They try to get the hand histories, etc. of the best guys. And once they do that, so many people on mid stakes do this for the high stakes guys. They simply take a couple of guys that are really good, and they copy their style, and it's usually like the one that's the most optimal that you can just take the lower stakes and apply there. I guess we're not at that stage in spin and goes yet, right?
We're not, but I definitely think. I mean, one of the things that I've always done in my sit and go career is always try and find the good players on your limit. So, like, if you see the same reg every day and he seems to always, own you, and you can either get annoyed about that, or you can just go, okay, this guy's doing something right, yeah? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get every hand of that player's that goes to Showdown, and I'm going to look at how he played that hand. So what sizing did he use? And you can use, like, Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker or something, and you can get your make hero be this other player, and you hide their hold cards, and you try and guess what hand they've got. So you run through a hand, see, okay, what did they do? All right, looks like they have something like this kind of hand. And then you can test yourself. You get to Showdown and say, okay, did I get it right? And if they play a hand in a way that you wouldn't have played, instead of what most regs do, just go, oh, like, that guy's an idiot. He didn't
Yeah. That's what I do in all various. It's hard to resist that,
Yeah, we always want to do that because we don't like to admit that maybe we make mistakes. So it's easier to just say, oh, that guy's clueless, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But then if you just think about it and you go, okay, actually, wait a second, that really makes sense what he's doing. I'm going to bring that into my own game rather than being annoyed about it. I'm going to just change my own game. So the same is true with any format. Definitely with spin and goes. Once you played a few, 200-300 hands against a good regular who you believe is winning, definitely run through their hands, see what they're doing, see if there are any strategies that you can bring into your own game. And at the very least, it will help you when you play against them because you know what habits they have. And that's what I mean about an optimal strategy is hard to come by because even a really good, strong winning reg will have some things that they tend to do, habits that they've got into that are profitable by and large, but they can be exploited. So, people who, let's say, always limp their trapping hands when they're, 15 big blinds deep. And instead of shoving into those limps, thinking, okay, the limps are always weak, you realize, okay, actually, this guy is not balanced. He's limping all of his traps. So now I'm going to just check back when he limps and just see a flop and then go from there.
Oh, okay, but I guess the less the format is figured out and less one obvious strategy there is, the more it pays to actually pay attention to what other people are doing and try to figure it out for both exploiting them and trying to arrive at a good strategy yourself, right, at the stake.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think one of the reasons that normal sit and goes have become increasingly less popular is just that regs have become really good at extracting value from recreational players. They've got really good at hand reading and value betting and bluffing in the right spots. So once that happens, the recreational players don't enjoy those games so much because they know that they're just, when they make a deposit, it's going to be like a couple of days. And whereas if they find a format that their deposit suddenly lasting them a week, then okay, they're going to play that because they get more value for it. So that's always the way, and spin and goes will get like that. It's kind of an inevitable process that you get players learn the strategies that work. But, we're just part of that learning curve, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you're absolutely right. We had a guy on the podcast, Vasi8, who is a professional, mid to high stakes heads up sit and go player, and it's absolutely like predatory, as you say. It's basically all the regulars. They're in cartels. Seriously, they're in cartels.
Yeah.
They know what the rankings are. You have to prove yourself. It's like if you're in a gang, you have to prove yourself by committing a few crimes. You have to prove yourself by playing the regulars in the cartel first before they allow you access to recreationals. And obviously, I thought about it only from the view of the regulars, which is really good, etc. But I guess once that happens, the recreationals always play the good regulars in the cartel because they weed out everyone else. So how is it in spin and goes? If you play, is it just one large pool? You can't really change who you play, right?
Well, that's to a large extent true. It's a blind lobby, so you click register and then you're pooled against unknown players. So from that sense, you can't influence who you play. There is some software out there that allows you to not play a certain group of other players who are using that same software. So you can say, I don't want to reg any games with this player in them. And I think in a way that's Yeah, I mean, I said it before. I think it's not really in the spirit of things. It's meant to be a blind random lobby where you just play randomly whoever you're selected rather than kind of influencing that selection. And again, it has the effect of forcing the recreational player on average to play against more regs, because if you never get 3 regs in a game, that means the recreational player is never going to get to play against other recreational players. So he's always kind of having a hard time, and what that does is just speeds up the rate at which he loses his deposit, and then he gets fed up and goes and does something else. So we have to be, and this is what the poker sites have to try and do, is they have to try and manage this this business. They have to try and keep the recreational players happy, keep them so that they're enjoying the game, and regs actually have some responsibility, although maybe they don't like to admit it, in that process, because if all the recreational players just say, look, I hate poker, I'm going to go off and play blackjack, then we're all out of a job. So
Yeah, absolutely. TT Bartek, what's that software, by the way? He's asking. Is it like it's a third party, right?
yeah, it's a third-party software. I mean, I'm not sure if I even want to.
I wouldn't even talk about it because I'm actually surprised that something like that exists. Obviously, when you come from a cash game background, like as you guys know, there's scripting, etc. I guess but I didn't think about it that way. That the spin and go, it's similar to Zoom games. That you enter the pool and you can't really change who you play. So basically, you just sit in and there's no predatory system. You're not being hunted really. Because you play everyone else, so you have an equal chance. Yeah, so this was actually that's what was interesting, and even in the tiny sample that I played, that in one game I would get 2 regulars that play 6 spin and goes at the same time plus, and then you get 2 players playing on a tablet, that obviously have no clue, and they're in a free roll, the privileged free roll at the same time.
Exactly.
So it's basically it's a fairer system than all the other variants in sit and
I think so. Yeah, and in a normal sit and go, a big part of the game these days, for like I said, the last 3-4 years, has been what we call game selection. Just looking in the lobby, looking at the game that's loading, and saying, is there enough value in this game? And if there is, you play it, and if there isn't, you just wait for another one to load. And not having to make those decisions is kind of good. It takes the decision-making time. You don't spend ages waiting for a decent game to play. So I think there are some good things. I wouldn't mind actually having this kind of system translated across to all sit and goes. If you want to play a $7 9-man, why not just click register and not be able to see who you're playing against, and then no one can bum hunt you, no one can game select you, just play the game you want to play. I mean, that's probably a bit radical. I don't see it being introduced, but it does kind of make sense to me why they would want to translate this blind lobby structure across to other formats.
Yeah. So there's basically one big pool. People jump into it. One of the things is obviously in cash games, some people simply enjoy playing one player for more and more hands. Basically getting to know him, and you feel each other out and feel the table out. You exploit them, etc. I guess in sit and goes, that doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You play 6 other players. You register for another one, so there shouldn't be any major reason why they wouldn't introduce this, or is there?
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, they could maybe. Yeah, I mean, they could maybe try it, trial run it. But I would have thought, again, that anything that encourages players to come back and, they have a good experience, they don't feel like they're being picked on, that's going to grow the game. If you're a recreational player and you see the same faces and you know that this guy's always taking your money, you never seem to win a sit and go when there's this person playing, you just go off and do something else, right? So anything they can do to make the game more attractive is a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that actually that I've seen mentioned on a forum is that obviously it's a new format and the skepticism, and it's called homeostasis when you don't want to change from your present state to something else because of evolutionary reason, because there might be danger. Why cheat something that is safe? That's why regs are not in their games. Actually, do you agree that if you want to get into sit and go, spin and goes, now is the time basically, and they will get harder and harder as the regs get comfortable with playing them? Yeah,
I mean, just in general principles, a time when the time when a game first appears is the time when, you know, everyone is, let's say, flying blind or
Yeah.
at their least comfortable. So you definitely want to, you know, be willing to try these games out in the early stages because people will get better strategies. So I think, you know, now is that the game is still young enough that it's decent. I mean, I'm not trying to plug this game particularly. I wouldn't make any difference to me whether everyone said, you know, I don't like Spin and Goes, I want to go back and play normal Spin and Goes. I will play what, you know, what people want to play.
Yeah, it's like Puzzle and Omaha when it came out,
Yeah.
when it became popular. You know, regs that flock to it. The biggest winner now, this is a new guy, I'm not sure who he is actually, it's Jap something. He won over 1 million on PokerStars. He's from Puzzle and Omaha because, you know, it's not as figured out as the No Limit Nosebleeds games.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this what you mean, basically jump into it. It's one of the things, I'll draw a parallel with professional gaming. I'm sorry I have to do this. Basically there was this game called StarCraft, right? And now everyone knows that in gaming you have these replays, you know, and it's pro gaming, people watch like how professionals play. You don't have that. It was just a game. You couldn't see how other people play. There was no streams, there was no replays. So basically only way how you could learn the game, because you didn't know what was the best strategy, is you jump into it, figure it out for yourself, and the people that figure it out the fastest, obviously they rose to the top. And you know the fastest they exploited basically what's been happening there. So I guess finding new formats, they will lead into that. If you're really good and you can figure out things for yourself and learn faster than others, then you should try that.
Trial and error, isn't it? You know, that's how the old days, these old granddads of poker. You know, there were no strategy books, there were no streams, anything. They kind of made the game up. So you know, I guess it's a bit of romanticism to think that it could ever be like that again. Of course,
Yeah.
And I think, you know, by and large, all the educational material out there is a good thing. But yeah, for sure, there's something to be said for just thinking for yourself and trying to figure out a game and, you know, doing the work on your own time. And that probably does make you a stronger player when you have to just, you know, sit and work it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, so if you have any questions about Spin and Goes, please ask them. I will just link you to these videos here in the forum. Yeah, you can just basically start watching them. And yeah, I've tried to play it, obviously, for someone without patience and who gets tilted easily. It's kind of rough when you play and, you know, you get the lowest one. When you're starting out, you get the lowest price structure like 10 times in a row. It's like, oh, darn it. I'm never playing this before. So obviously Spin and Goes are a long-term play, right? You kind of have to forget about that if you jump into them.
They're a long-term play unless you bink the 1.
Oh, the 1 million one.
If you get that the first game and you win it, then I would go and buy an island and give up poker.
Yeah, it was the Russian. So what was the biggest one you've ever won?
I played it 100 times and I won it. So that's the biggest. That was my biggest winning day in poker. It was about 2 months ago. So that was a good day, I gotta say.
How much was that?
6K.
6K in a Spin and Go.
Yeah.
Oh man, oh, it's okay. That obviously is nice. I guess it's Variant doesn't work that way, but it should level out in the long run, right?
Well, trust me, it did level out because I was like, okay, I was on cloud 9 for like a few days, and then I started to lose money, and then I got to the point where I was going, okay, wow, I just lost, you know, like 100 buy-ins, so I lost the entire profit. I kind of won it back again, but it was amazing to see winning and losing that kind of amount in a very short space of time. So, you know, when we're coming back to what we said about having like a strong mentality, you really need to be, you know, willing to go through a little bit of pain.
I can even tell from you talking about it. Obviously, you're not immune to it. Even now, you're telling me, you know, that, oh my God, I won, then you lost it back. You know, obviously, even you, after such a long time in Sit and Goes, you are affected by this stuff. We have a question from Bartek, by the way. Could you find and link your charts for Equilab? By the way, yeah, there's an article on Poker Strategy with the opening ranges there, with the default ones. Can we find them in one of your videos? By the way, I guess it will be in all of them, right? Playing for small blind, big blind, etc.
Yeah, that's right. And if you find there's a feedback thread for the Spin and Go coaching series, this one that you're showing here. And in that feedback thread, I posted all of the ranges that I talked about, and just as like a game to just make it clear that they're based on this idea of you not having any idea who you're playing against. So just like I said, a default range, something that you can work with right off the bat. And I think a lot of people feel, okay, they're on the tight side, which is true, but, like we saw, so many players are brand new to this limit, and if you're not that used to playing out of position, you don't want to be playing too many weak hands there. So, yeah, if you go to the forum, if you just go to forums, I can try and find that for you.
Yeah, if you can find it, it would be great. Yeah, one of the things is, obviously, you can use the charts, but as Tim was mentioning, actually, the players didn't figure them out, even the regs, and you get so many recreational players that basically they will limp everything, they will min race even strong hands, etc. They will min free bet you with aces, and then they will call everything else. So I guess the charts are great, but it seems if you can low table them.
Yeah, I'll let me find them for you now. Where are we? Sit and go tournaments. And there we go. Should be the one. Yep. Okay, let's grab that for you, and I'm going to post that into the chat right here. There you go. Those are the ranges that we were talking about. There's some nice discussion at the end of that thread about the ranges and whether they're too tight and stuff. And I definitely encourage you guys to have a look and make your own mind up. No one's going to tell you what you must do in poker. You have to take responsibility for your own decisions. And if you try and follow any starting hand chart and say, okay, this is what I must do, this is what I must do in all circumstances, you're going to become really exploitable. So what you have to do is take that as a starting point and say, okay, against this player I can open wider, against this player I have to be tighter, against this player here I can 3-bet any 2 cards, and against this guy I have to be really waiting for a strong hand. And it's that kind of adaptation, like I was saying earlier, that is what will sort of mark you as a good player in the long run, being able to kind of work out who's your customer and act accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about finding the balance. By the way, the spin and goes you're watching, guys. I'm a very exploitive player in cash games when it goes deep, So I just try to push any edge. And I definitely went overboard in the spin and goes, Especially when you find a player that's that is a recreational one and he's got loads of imbalances. You can try and figure him out. Obviously, it works better in cash games when you can rebuy than in spin and goes.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys. Yeah, Bartek, I hope we answered your question. Right, so if you have any questions about spin and goes, how to play them, how to beat them, etc., how to win the 1 million jackpot, which, I don't know, can you really be a coach in spin and goes if you haven't even won the highest price,
Probably not, probably I'm the wrong man to ask. But yeah, I think if I had won the $1 million, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be in Monaco or the Bahamas or something.
Oh, absolutely, living the Donald Trump lifestyle.
That's it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, okay, guys. Again, if you have any questions, we'll jump into that. Next topic we have is your blog. I think it's the longest running and most updated blog, actually, of someone who is on Poker Strategy. You can, guys, I actually linked it in the description. I'll link it again. It's absolutely flabbergasted. It's mind-blowing that, you start this blog, you see the guys in the, we have the Get Rich and Die Trying challenge, and we have our blog section, etc. Basically, they started exactly where you started, Hi, guys, I'm new here. I'm playing the short stack strategy, which was, by the way, would start with back in the day, Poker Strategy. You would start with that, with your starting bankroll. And, it was like your baby steps. I play it for a few months, You talk about how you got the deposit in. Then you slowly, graduate into a 1K bankroll. Then you lose it, obviously. It's like 230. Then you suddenly become this coach, etc. So, we can follow your journey from your very beginnings until today, and you're one of the very few people that became successful to actually keep it updated quite frequently, So can you tell us something about the blog? What made you start the blog in the first place, and how did you manage to keep it running for so long?
Well, I guess I started it because I read the blogs of other players, and I could see that people were posting success stories, and so that made me think, okay, maybe there's a connection between, writing about stuff and then achieving it. And I think in general, blogging is quite, well, you could use this word cathartic. It kind of means you kind of get your feelings out on paper. So let's say you have a terrible day. Well, you can complain to your readership, because like if you like we were saying before at the beginning of the show, if you try and complain to your girlfriend or your mother or your friend, they just like look at you and go, well, duh, obviously you're playing poker, of course you lost money. So if you can write about that frustration and like the pain and the anxiety, it helps you deal with it. That's what I found.
Yeah.
And also it helps you kind of structure your goals, talk about what you're trying to achieve. So that was, I think, the initial motivation, and just like almost like a recording device. I wanted to just record whether it became anything. And like when I started it, I was just, okay, well, this is kind of fun. But I had this vague idea that maybe it would become something. And then, I guess it became more important to keep it updated because it was becoming more and more serious. And like now, I have to be honest to say I don't update it as much as I used to, because things have reached a kind of like a level of calmness in a way.
Yeah.
Where I have my routine and there's much less uncertainty for me now than there was. But yeah, definitely, like for example around Black Friday, which was 4 years ago yesterday, that was a terrible time for very many professional poker players, and a lot of the guys listening today maybe we're not even playing poker then, because it's a very young game, a game which attracts young players. But having that experience of just losing your whole bankroll nearly, it was really tough to deal with, and just having a forum where I could kind of say, whoa, what's going on, guys, was really nice. So it definitely helped me deal with some of that stuff. And when you post a hand and you have someone come along and say, you know what, you made a mistake in that, again, like we say, you often don't want to hear that. You just want to be told, yeah, nice hand, you were unlucky. But I posted so many hands on that blog, and people have come along and say, you know what, I really think you misplayed that. And if you listen to that advice, you learn stuff. So the combination of that and the hand forums where you post your hands and the judges comment, they were a lot of help over the years.
Yeah, this one of the things is actually that's a very good point about writing down your feelings and understanding them. I feel bad. People say, oh, you shouldn't really complain. One thing's like I'm listening to like podcasts, like menproven.com and stuff like that. It's really cheesy, but the point is, back in the day, I would try basically to make myself forget about all the bad stuff that happened, focus on the good hands, keep going. But actually it works out if you feel through the bad feeling, you try to understand it and say, okay, for example, say, okay, I'm angry now. I mean, this made me actually tilted, instead of saying no, okay, forget about this, focus for next time. It actually works out to feel out the feelings. And then it's easier to work on the reasons behind them. Basically understand yourself better. So I guess you use the blog as one of the mediums to actually do that, to stay true to yourself and express yourself and understand yourself, right?
I think, everyone's different. Some people are better at, like if you have a lot of self-confidence and you're doing the right thing, then you can just grind it out, and you have a bad day and another bad day and another bad day, and it doesn't affect you. There are some players like that, and I really feel envious of them, because I wish I was like that, and they maybe don't need this outlet so much. They can just say, I know I'm doing the right thing, I just have to wait until things turn. But, like for me, it was, let's say, more of a confidence thing where, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, and, if it is affecting your play, then you need to deal with what's going on. And the worst thing you can do is have all the stuff going around in your head, all this self-doubt, and am I the unluckiest guy in the world, and how come I can't win a hand, and I was winning but now I lost all this money. All the stuff that goes, if that is actually causing you to play badly, then if you don't fix it, then you go broke, basically. So if you do have those mental issues, and I think the vast majority of us do have them, you should try and find a way of dealing with them, whether that's blogging or meditation or music or exercise, whatever it is that works for you. You have to kind of find that that way of managing it,
the way of understanding yourself, and facing whatever you're doing, right, and trying to fix it. as opposed to like blindly going forward and forgetting about it. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
coaching helps with that as well, right? I mean, there's so many things you don't realize until someone actually comes in and sees, okay, you're doing this wrongly, or you're not thinking about this. Sometimes who comes out of the box that you're thinking in, right? So I guess it's the blog, but coaching can be one way to do the similar thing that you're doing with your blog as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coaching is something that helps with your own game, because if you have a student saying, what should I do here, or you say, okay, that was a mistake, you have to be able to explain why it was a mistake and what they should have done differently. So that means you have to organize your own thoughts, and it's holding you up to that kind of standard, to that test. You have to be able to justify the statements you're making. So, someone says, well, why are you telling me to fold 7 deuce? Well, you have to say, well, because it's a low equity hand, and then you have to justify it, and you get Equilab up, and you explain hand rankings and all stuff. So it helps you with your own game in terms of the clarity of thought. And also, just generally, poker is a game where you spend, 4 or 5 hours staring at a screen, right?
Yeah.
Just clicking buttons. And so it's nice to have that social interaction, like we're having right now. We're having a chat about something that we, both passionately enjoy. That's nice because, as we said, there's not too many other people who you can talk to about it. So I think all those kinds of things are good and they're, positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so guys, if you want an outlet for for your thoughts, and people comment on the blogs, you can comment on other people's blogs. One thing I find is if you comment on someone else, they're more likely to comment on you. By the way, so if you get active with someone else, they'll get active with you. I can see even some guys, asking you, add me on Skype and stuff like that, etc. Basically, right? Oh, by the way, I'll sidetrack a bit. We have a couple of questions about the spin and goes. What bankroll would you recommend for $5 spin and goes? And someone thinks you shouldn't even play those.
Yeah, I don't want to do PokerStars out of its business, but the $5 spin and goes are going to be tougher to beat because the prize distribution is skewed. It's skewed even more than the normal spin and goes. So it's all directed to that 1 million. And that
is it?
That you pay the price for that by having an even greater number of, just the 2x multiplier. So it's harder to even out the variance, and since it's very unlikely you get the $1 million, I think there are some good reasons for saying, let's leave that one. On the other hand, they are attracting the most gambly kind of players, yeah? So in terms of actually winning chips in those games, they are probably the softest games out there. So
yeah, I mean, you can look at me. I'm a fish, which I am in those games. I look at the lobby. Whoa, 1 million with $5? No way! And I jump into them. So
it's a no-brainer. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Tony P is making the point that they should be played more instead of the 7s because you're more in the money, so it will compensate for the extra variance. Do you agree with that?
I think it's close. I mean, I think it depends what your mentality is. Like, the more that you want something that's somewhat steady, the more you should be playing, where the rake is not too high and where you have some idea of what bankroll. The more you're doing it for fun and hoping for that really big score, why not? Absolutely. Not everyone has the same goals in poker. Some people are trying to make a steady monthly income that supports them. Some people are just trying to get as high as possible, as quickly as possible. And some people are just trying to have fun. And, we don't necessarily want to put everyone in the same box about what they're wanting to do.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess it's a trade-off, Tony. Yeah, I think you will be right. It's gonna be a bit softer, but the long-term thing, it's a high variance game. You're adding even higher variance on it by having the one huge pot, basically, with the 1 million taken away from it. He's asking, well, if PLO spin and goes appeared, oh my God,
that would be cool.
Would they be beatable? And would my question is, would anyone fold ever anything?
No, but they would definitely be beatable. I mean, you're just thinking. I think that would be a gold mine because you're going to take. You can basically play anything, and then it really comes down to your skill. And I'm sure that you could have a bigger edge in a PLO spin and go than in a Hold'em one. So yeah, why not? I mean, let's. Oh,
hold on. The rake would be the same because the big downfall, the big hammer that goes on small stakes and micro stakes PLO in cash games is the rake is absolutely astronomical in there.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
but it's not. It's basically it will be the same with Hold'em. Obviously, the edges are closer because the equities run closer. I guess the rake would be not as bad as in cash games on micro and low stakes,
I
right?
would have thought so. Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I think. Well, they have some PLO sit and goes. They don't get that much traffic running through them. But yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't have a few, few PLO spin and goes. Why not? Let's try. We should try things.
Absolutely, Tony, if you go ahead. Yeah, Tony is mentioning that he'd rather take the 100k more often. Oh, that's very nice of you. So he would like 100k more often, but even then, yeah, he prefers the fives because I guess it makes sense that they are softer, because fish do exactly what I said. They say 1 million. That's a no-brainer for me. So if you don't mind the higher variance in all high variance game, I guess that's
Why not?
that's
Exactly.
absolutely fine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people will flat buttons, button raises more often, maybe outplay out position. Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's right. If you don't have to free bet, right? So basically, people would flat a lot more out of position, and you can tell now that the player pool is so weak that if you're a good player and you know how to play post flop in PLO, you would outplay them really really hard, right?
I think so. Position is, really, really important. I mean, it's important in both games, but definitely having position in PLO is like really a big deal. So yeah, I think it would be definitely beatable.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so coming back to your blog, one thing actually, we have the Get Rich or Die Trying challenge. I'm actually wondering, now that you have all this experience with your mental game, at the beginning, you started the blog with updating your bankroll size quite often.
Yeah.
Is it something you would recommend or not for people starting blogs?
I
Now,
don't think
in hindsight.
I don't think it's crucial because it's just a number. It's more like it's a record of where you started and where you got to. But I don't think it's as important as trying to be objective about your skill level and your opponent's skill level, and being honest about the feelings that you're having. So, I mean, I think it can be useful because it's a way of motivating yourself and so on. But I don't think it's, necessary. And I think a lot of people feel, okay, that's like a bit too much information, and I think that's fair enough. A lot of people don't like to put, their graphs on their blogs and stuff, and I think that's fine. It's whatever. You should put just that information that you're comfortable sharing, and no one should feel like there's any obligation on them to share stuff that they don't want to share. Everyone's kind of level of privacy is different, right?
Yeah, I guess. One thing is that there's the bankroll challenge in poker strategy. I'll just link that. I actually took part in that, and one thing is they want you to do is basically every week you just put in your bankroll amount. Obviously, talk about privacy. Yeah, that's fine. I'm hoping no one finds my poker strategy from my family because they have no idea how much I make, etc. How much I don't make. Sometimes. Yeah, but one thing is, I can see it in your blog. Basically, it gives you like a reason to update it. Basically, it breaks down. In poker, it's a one big session. Especially in spin and goes, it's very important. Even if you win 6K. Not to be like ecstatic about it and then feel bad, even you were affected by it. It's a one big session. And one thing I find, like putting the weekly updates, even if it's a bankroll or number of hands you played, it basically creates this time period that you can focus on. And then, okay, I played my week, then you can automatically review it and you focus on the next week, etc.
Yeah, exactly. It forces you to split up into chunks, something that otherwise is just goes on forever, and I think that's useful because otherwise you're grinding and there's no end point. The grind is never over, so it's kind of nice to have like a weekly update, maybe a daily update depending on what you want. And then it gives you some structure, like you say.
Yeah, it basically showed me like obviously you were structured, and when you bring a lawyer, it kind of shows in the blog, which obviously is very qualitative information, as in you put out your feelings. But it's quite structured in terms of the bankroll updates, etc. So yeah. So what advice, like if someone is starting a blog on poker strategy, they want to do the same as you, they want to start a blog now, and there you go. 6 years later, you're doing the community show and you're coaching for $50 per hour, putting out videos, and learning yourselves these new formats. What are like the main things that you would recommend to people that they would do? That's something you learned in the journey that you started? If you could give, I don't know, 3 or 5
Excellent.
points.
Yeah. You mean about the poker journey generally, or specifically about blogging?
About blogging, even the poker journey, because obviously it's like it's something that you wrote down. So if you read your blog backwards, you will know the major things that you've done. So if you look about, in terms of long run, if someone's starting out where you were starting in, what were like the major lessons you would give them now?
I think, well, I mean, I say it quite often, but you have to be very patient in poker, just because it takes a long time to grind through the downswings, and it takes a long time to realize your edge in any particular game, especially these days, which is why it's a popular game, because any player, no matter how good or bad they are, can have a really big winning day. So you have to kind of understand that. And I think one thing that it's really easy to do is to, let's say, overestimate how quickly you can get to some goal. So for example, you could say, well, I'm going to play the $10 sit and goes, and I'm going to make 5% ROI, and I'm gonna so if I play X number of this game, I'll have this much bankroll, and then I get to move up. And you really want to be realistic about all the setbacks that can happen. Let's say you hit a downswing, and that causes you to play badly, and then that makes everything take longer, or you have some health problems or whatever it is. So there are lots of things that can get in the way. So you have to be try and be really realistic about how long something's going to take. Don't get too upset if there's a setback and you're not where you expect it to be at a certain time, because it's a game that really rewards you for like a long-term commitment. Whereas if you say, all right, I'm going to do this for 2 months, and if I've got $1,000, then hey, that's a win. I'm happy. If I haven't, then I'm giving up. That's not the best attitude to have, or at least it's quite common. But you can't guarantee whatever you do that you cannot guarantee. I will definitely have this amount in my bankroll by the X of November, whatever.
Yeah, one thing basically, it was a podcast with Daniel Negreanu and Jared Tindall, I believe that I heard it. Don't quote me on that, by the way. He says that in poker it's very difficult to set goals and stand by them. Instead, you should view like the monetary goals you set yourself, and you had obviously the bankroll goals in there as well. See them more as targets, something to aim for. And if you don't get there, that's fine. It's basically it's just mind does what it focuses on. So as long as you have something you focus on and you're not too attached to it, this is what I'm aiming for, but I'm not attached to that thing. Basically work towards it. You don't get there. Okay, I didn't get there. I set another target. So
exactly.
You don't get disappointed by that, but you still give some frame to your mind, something to aim at, basically. So you're working towards something. Yeah, it's easier said than done. But do you agree with this approach?
I totally agree, and I think it is easier said than done, because you can't pretend not to be disappointed if you have a target and you don't make it. But it's like it has some similarities with traveling, because when you're traveling, not like a train journey, but let's say you're traveling around the country with a lot of time, it's not about getting from this place to this place. It's about that journey. It's about what happens to you on your travels. Who do you meet? What experiences do you have, and so on. And I think the same is true of poker. It's that journey. What happens to you along the way? What do you learn? What habits do you form which are good? What habits do you form which are unhelpful? So it's not about, okay, I've got to get to $1,000. It's what happened to you getting there. And okay, maybe it took you twice as long to get there as you thought it would be, but at the end of it, you're a much stronger player because you had that much more struggle.
I see.
So I think,
So basically, you need to know you're going. If you don't go, if you don't want to go anywhere, that you wouldn't stand up from your chair. So you need to kind of know that you're trying to get somewhere to get off, but then use the way there to learn and improve, as opposed to being attached to the destination, pretty much, right? For example, I have a goal of 1,000. You should see it as something that reason why you keep going, but use what you learned as the major product of it, not the 1,000 itself, right?
Exactly. Don't get attached to your destination. Don't be attached to your chair as well. Make sure you get up every so often. That's another thing, Just so easy to just spend your whole day sitting in your chair and you barely move. It's not good for the body. Make sure you get some exercise. Don't be like me.
I mean, you obviously have balance in your life. Yeah, guys, if you have a question about this vlog, please ask us. We lost some time, so we can add a couple of minutes, by the way. Yeah, so I want to move to the next topic. Obviously, your blog is great, guys. If you want to make it again, check out Tim's blog, because there's so many guys that are starting blogs in the Get Rich Die Trying challenge. It's so similar to your first couple posts, that the guys are starting. So just have patience, stick it out, move around, and you will get there eventually. So our next topic is poker as a career choice. So you spoke about being a lawyer. You said that if you work with a client and help them out, it's very rewarding. Why did you make the conscious decision? And it's not very common. Most guys, they either quit university or they have a low paying job. They decide, I make so much more money in poker. But I guess that wasn't necessarily the case when you actually moved to poker. So can you tell us something? What made you decide to move into poker, and how is it a viable career choice, and where for you? Because you were obviously very successful at your career.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was kind of in a way the other way around. I mean, I think most people move into poker because they want to make a lot of money. As for me, what I used to do was, I have to be honest, much better paid than what I do now. So for me, it was a case of, am I happy? Am I enjoying what I do now? And the answer was yeah, to some degree, but okay, there's like too much stress. So when we left London, left our jobs, and we had to start again. At that stage, I didn't have a job.
So you quit your job. You didn't have
completely.
Not because of poker, but you simply quit your job and.
Yep, we just quit our jobs and we went traveling for a whole year. And when we came back, we were not in London anymore. So it was I was always going to be starting like afresh anyway, but what led me into poker was, okay, I had a lot of time on my hands because I didn't have a job, and I gradually, discovered the game and I got better at it. And what happened was I had a job which was just a call center job, phoning people up, trying to ask them to pay their mortgages, yeah? And,
oh, yeah, everyone loves those guys, by the way.
Exactly, yeah, I'm sure it was like super popular. But that job had, sort of a fairly low hourly wage. And I was playing poker, and at some point I realized, okay, I'm making a little bit more in poker than I am in that job. So now it makes sense, since I'm not enjoying the other job, now it makes sense to, treat this more seriously and go pro. And I guess I was kind of lucky because we had some savings, so I could afford to take that risk. I think that's a lot of people just are not in that position where they can, take the chance. But, for me it made sense because I knew I didn't want to go back to doing what I did before. And I wanted a job that, gave me the freedom and kind of gave me the control, to make my own choices and work when I wanted to work. And, if I didn't feel like working, take a break. So that's kind of what led me to there. And I mean, in terms of the career itself, I wouldn't go into it lightly, I took a long time to come to the decision to go pro. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just doing something crazy. So I wouldn't say it's an easy decision to make. But that said, if you already gave up like a very lucrative career, it's easier then to try something new because you already made the big kind of like, as it were, brave decision to give up the high-paying job. Yeah. So now after that, like everything else is a bit easier because it doesn't seem so scary.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like I play NL25, and I hang out with these like players that play NL1K, and I was working in finance and in sales, etc. And when I meet them, they have this mentality like my dad has. I need to do the thing that makes the most money, and I just enjoy what I do. I use poker to travel, and do these crazy things and explore new places, And the guys that basically quit uni and went into a poker career, they kind of see it as a job, I think, it seems a lot easier when you have the time on your hands. But question I have is, the mentality of most people is, where the most money is, that's the best career. Loads of poker players actually have the same mentality. They play it, I make a lot of money here, I can't quit because I would make less money. Even the guys that hate poker. They don't like poker and they stay in it because, okay, it makes me more money than I would basically make somewhere in a garden or something, even though they would be happier. Do you see it that way as well, that you don't look at the EV in life in terms of money, specifically, but in terms of, you know, balance, etc. Can you talk about that a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think when you had a lot of money and then you don't have money, you get to understand what the difference is, and you get to make like a kind of rational choice, if you like, about how important it for you to have a lot of money. And if it's not that important because you realize, okay, I wasn't that happy, then you can, you know, bring that into your assessment, if you like. So, you know, for me, it was not so important to have a lot of money. If it had been, I wouldn't have left my job. You know, I'd still be, you know, being a lawyer. So it was not as important to me as maybe it would be to other people. You know, I was lucky we had this time traveling when we, you know, saw a lot of stuff. So now, you know, family life is kind of more important to me, and having something where I can control. I get to see a lot of my family now, which I wouldn't have done if I had to go out and work, you know, 12 hours a day, or what a lot of these guys, you know, would have to do. So I think everyone has different motivations. You know. Some people, it's all about trying to get to some destination where they feel, okay, I've got enough to settle down, I've got enough to buy a house. Other people, they just want the glamour and the fun of the excitement of it. And, you know, some people are more just, okay, I want something that's stable, that gives me a bit of freedom. And yeah, I'm just that sort of person, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, it's not very surprising, you know, and people realize it maybe, I don't know, later in life, but when we studied at business school, it's called the hierarchy of needs. It was a theory by Maslow, I believe. Don't quote me on that again. My professors would kill me. But basically, the thing is there's a certain amount of money that you need, for example, for your basic needs, right? For, I don't know, food, your mortgage, whatever. If you want to go out, you go out. If you want to dress up, you dress, you buy new clothes, etc. But the thing is, there's a certain level, and, you know, people that have certain income, their happiness rises drastically, because if you don't have money for food, it goes down. Obviously, you can't be happy if you don't have food in your mouth, etc. But the thing is, above that level, the happiness levels, they don't increase. They're exactly the same. People that earn above this, like the minimum or like the mid-level of incomes, the higher level income people, they're not happier. You see celebrities, you know, being depressed, etc., etc. You know.
For sure.
Yeah. So I guess is there something that you would agree with? I guess.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like you said, if you need $100 to pay for your weekly needs, then, you know, if you've got $100, that's great. If you have $200, you're not going to be twice as happy as if you had $100. Yeah. So the marginal benefit to you of that extra money is not so big as if you had $90, right? And then that extra $10 means you have enough to eat, whereas the $10 above that, it's just like a bonus. So, I mean, it's a simplistic way of looking at it, but I definitely think if you can be happy with, you know, some reasonable amount of money, and that's enough for you, and, you know, you don't need to have the best car and the best house and the best, you know, mobile phone and all of these extra things in life that, you know, are not really that important, but they kind of make us feel like we've achieved something because I've got the best, you know, I've got a $2,000 watch or whatever. That's just like a very short-term thing. So some people that does make them feel worthwhile. That's fine, but for me, it's not, you know, such a big deal. So, you know, if you mentioned about budget and stuff. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've always done is to say, I'm going to try and withdraw, like, each month the same amount of money, yeah? Right. So if I had, like, a really big month, like I did a couple of months ago, I could say, well, I'm going to withdraw a lot this month, and I'm going to go out on a spending spree. Yeah. But then the next month, when I have a slightly losing month, then there's nothing there. So if you say, right, I'm going to withdraw what I need, and the rest goes into bankroll, you get into a habit of, you know, doing that, and it becomes like a routine, and therefore you're not so excited about the big months because you're not going to spend that money, but equally you're not so sad about the losing months or the months where you don't make as much as you need to make, because you know, okay, I've got that money as a backup there. I've got that bankroll there, which is big enough that I can withdraw from it, you know, when I need to top up my earnings with bankroll. So you know, being disciplined in that way, it's kind of boring, you know. This is the thing about poker. It's meant to be baller, And there are a lot of people who just do have, Phil Galfond, Tom Dwan, etc. They are truly baller, and I bow my head down to those guys. But for your average grinding reg, it's much more about trying to plan for the long term and not spending the money just because you want it.
This is so great on so many. So many financial advisors tell you should put aside a certain amount of money every month, basically. But on full poker, I'm like, wow, this is so simple and it's almost mind blowing. I mean, yeah, you get used to expenses. You withdraw the same amount, so you don't. Poker players do this all the time. I mean, I have guys on my Skype. They play the same limits even though they start crushing. I'm like, what happened? Well, I saw a bike, I had an old bike, now I moved up, so I buy a nicer bike, basically. But if you teach yourself to withdraw exactly the same amount of money, A, your bankroll grows, but B, you don't really care about the variance that much, right? Because, it doesn't affect how much money you have. You basically have money for your needs.
Yeah,
and if you get more, you don't really gain anything from that, right?
Exactly. There are other reasons to play poker. Like you can play poker for the intellectual challenge, the enjoyment of the game. And like most people who play poker, they start out by loving it, and the more it becomes a job, and the more stressful it becomes, often the less they like it. So it's like with any job, if you can stay in, a sort of mental place where you still enjoy it, that's great. How many people wake up each day and look forward to going to their job, but not that many. So if you can try and keep it fresh, that's good. And I guess taking the money out of the equation helps with that. It's I'm saying it like it's an easy thing to do. It's definitely not, and I'm not that good at it. I get bothered by downswings. If I have a month where I lost money or I didn't make enough, I feel cross. I start wondering, okay, is the game dying and maybe I can't make money anymore? All this kind of self-doubt. But so you're trying to kind of insulate yourself from that as much as possible. And one way you can do that is, not spending everything that you earn and just, trying to see the long term. And that was a lesson that, I took a long time to understand. Is that
it was quite early in your blog, actually. You mentioned, okay, maybe I'm not going to make as much money. I'm going to enjoy the game now. This basically, it's at the beginning, you were making, your bankroll was around 1 point something K, and you said, I'm going to play poker because I enjoy it,
Yeah, so I kind of went, my idea, I was all set to become a pro. I really wanted to get there and be making a living. And it was a real struggle, and I was just not playing well because there was kind of all this pressure on myself. So I said, okay, fine, forget about that idea. Let's just play poker for fun. And as soon as I did that, it kind of took the pressure off me.
Yeah.
When you do that, like in a lot of things in life, if you take the pressure off you, you can actually, you free your mind a bit. You give your mind more space to work through things. And that's when actually I started to improve, when I was like, okay, well, maybe I won't ever be a professional player. I'll just do it for fun. I'll do it for, pocket money. Yeah. And then once I kind of overcame that hurdle, then I was able to get back into it, but with a better kind of attitude, I guess.
Yeah, because you didn't care, and I guess you keep it up by one of the tips is basically keep your expenses the same. You withdraw at X amount of month, and as I said, as long as you have that money, it doesn't really affect you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I get that. Yeah, guys. Okay, we have a couple questions actually. How much do you rely on HUD while playing Spin and Goes?
Quite a bit, to be honest. I think if you have that information, then you get used to using it. If there was no HUD, no one would miss it in the sense that you just get used to observing your opponents more closely. So all a HUD is doing is automating the collection of information. So like if you analyzed your opponents carefully, let's say you were playing one table and you can look at everything that people do, and you can write down, okay, he raised the last 4 buttons, then okay, he's going to have a high steal. But the HUD is doing that. It's doing that for you. So you get used to relying on it. And I think if you've got it, you may as well use it. But you could definitely beat these games without a HUD, certainly in the lower limits. So, if you want to go that way, it's fine. But I think it's kind of providing you with free information, so probably not sensible to not use it if you have it.
Yeah, but I guess it's the same in all formats in poker. HUD gives you like a guideline basically on statistics, but it doesn't tell you, for example, what sizings people used. I'm guessing at least, or is there a HUD that does that?
Maybe there is actually. I'm not aware of it, but yeah, I guess it can't be that hard to program. Could be done. I mean, HUD is another one of these tools which we've got really used to using, but if the websites really wanted to, the poker sites rather, if they really wanted to kind of level the playing field, make the recreational players feel more comfortable, they could just do that. They could say, okay, no HUDs. We're just going to ban it. If you're caught using it, you're banned. They could do, whatever they want to. Maybe they will, but I think, probably it's been around for too long now that they wouldn't want to get rid of it. So,
Yeah, there we go. Or you can buy Note Caddy for Spin and Go, says Tony PMM. Yeah, I guess that provides you with the sizings. Okay, guys. Yeah, we wanted to talk about your married life still, but we kind of ran out of time. So hopefully, guys, you enjoyed the pictures. Right. One thing I want to mention is just the Heads Up Challenge is going on. Obviously, it's guys playing cash. So tune in tomorrow, guys, at 9 p.m. And for you, Tim, do you have any shout-outs you want to say or any last advice you want to give to people?
Yeah, I mean, a shout-out to all my students, past and present. Shout-out to all my stakees. Thanks for giving me a chance to help you with your poker careers. Thanks to Poker Strategy for making me a coach and for being there when I was just getting started playing poker. Without the strategy on the site and without that starting bankroll, probably wouldn't be where I am now. So, that's been great. And yeah, thank you to you for having this show and inviting me on. It's been good fun, and I think this format's really nice. You can have a chat about something, and it doesn't always have to be about coaching and
Yeah,
EPIP 24.
Exactly. People get to know you. Yeah, I think it's important in poker that to be in it for the long run, you kind of have to enjoy it as well. Kind of find the people that fantastic. Oh, Tony PM actually said Primordial AA. He's a spin and go reg, guys. So we'll get to see one of your kind, Tim, pitted against a specialist cash game player in a deep play, which is Latsko, who was on the show as well. So yeah, we will see once and for all which players are better, which is very fair because it's cash game format, right? So it's gonna definitely show which kind of pool of players is more skilled. So
exactly.
Tomorrow night, guys.
Maybe we don't want to know that though. We might find out that we're not the best.
I don't know. We'll see tomorrow in the match. And yeah, PM, thanks for letting me know. I had no idea. I thought he played just heads up. Oh, he plays heads up sit and go. So obviously he's one of the guys who we're talking about that moved into it. Well, thank you very much. It was great. It's nice to see that
my pleasure.
Someone who moved from a proper career to poker and all this info about the spin and go. So hopefully, guys, you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this, please post in the feedback thread. You can ask any questions. Obviously, I'll link you to Tim's coaching thread, so asking for coaching, watch his videos. And spoiler alert, we're trying to get Yuri Pelek, which is again a cash game coach here at Poker Strategy, for one of the next shows. Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you very much you all for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. All the best, Vaclav.